Okay, so we'll begin. And tonight we're going to talk about how to become a cloud architect. And the cloud architect is one of the best positions in the entire world. It's one of the most fun positions. It's one of the highest paying positions. And it's a job that you can really grow with. And executives by nature are architects. So architecture roles are a good entrance into the C-suite. So I'm going to talk about what we do today. My team would be upset if I didn't tell you that we're running a 50% off July 4th sale. So I'll tell you about that now. But I want to tell you what is an architect, how to become to as an architect. Now, whenever you listen to a presentation, you really have to evaluate the speaker. What is the speaker's background? What is the speaker's level of knowledge? What is that speaker's level of experience? Are they just starting out or have they been highly successful? So I'll tell you a little bit about me so you can make that judgment for yourself. I'm currently functioning as the CEO of Go Cloud Careers. My name is Mike Gibbs. I've been an IT architect now for over 25 years. Prior to that, I was in internal medicine. And during these times, I've been a network architect, I've been a cloud architect, I've been an enterprise architect, I've been a business architect, I've led architecture teams and architecture practices. During this time, I was the lead enterprise architect for all of Cisco's healthcare architectures. I've been a principal architect at Riverstone Networks, which was the old Cabletron, which then became Nokia. I was a principal 2 architect over at Comcast, which is the nation's largest cable provider, and I was responsible for designing their backbone. And I was a lead architect at MCI WorldCom, which was the world's largest internet service provider, and they are now Verizon. So in these past 25 years, I've been featured in 100+ magazine. I've spoken at thousands of conferences, and I've gotten people hired at every company you can imagine. Apple, Amazon, Cisco, IBM, Google, Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Zscaler, Palo Alto Systems, you name it, I've gotten people hired. And global banks too, like JP Morgan Chase, Barclays Bank, what have you, and so many others. And I've spent more than 2 decades helping people get their first tech job, helping people get promoted in tech, negotiating a $100,000 press raise. And I love it when someone starts their tech career. We don't all come from tech. I know I didn't. I was an EMT, paramedic, firefighter, which is how I paid my way through school, became a nurse, practiced internal medicine, and then went into tech, and tech has been my love. So in today's discussion, we're going to cover what is a cloud architect. We're also going to talk about what does a cloud architect do. We'll talk about why cloud architecture, along with enterprise architecture and AI architecture, is one of the best careers for 2024 and beyond. We're going to talk about the key skills that you have to be an architect, and a good one, the kind that can get hired anywhere and pretty much get paid anything you want. And then we will talk about the certifications we recommend. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there is absolutely 0 certifications out there that teach cloud architecture. There are cloud administration certifications like the AWS Solutions Architect Professional. It teaches you the name of an AWS service and how to configure that AWS service, but architects don't do any of that other job. So we will talk about why we recommend certifications and which ones will help you get the interview, and then what skills you need on the interview to go out there and get hired. And we'll talk about what we do and how we build the best architects. And then after that, you can ask us questions. Alonzo and I will hang out for 60 to 90 minutes. Alonzo came to us in the graphics art industry. We trained him. We got him a cloud architect job. He's awesome. He's also a personal friend that I begged him to come back and help lots of people get hired, and he helps me with that. And Leo's here as well. Leo is an incredible architect. He's one of our technical teams. He's one of our senior managers. He's terrific. He's over there in Brazil. So to begin, the cloud architect job is the most misconfused job in the entire world, along with architecture jobs. So many people think or confuse it with engineering, but it has no similarities or nothing to do with engineering. A cloud architect is a hybrid executive and technology professionals. It is by far one of the most strategic careers. And here's the reason architecture is a strategic career. In the modern world, technology is the ultimate competitive advantage. The organizations that can have the best systems that are optimized for their business get the best competitive advantage. Yet, most technology projects fail. And they fail because there's a misalignment between the organization's needs and the way the company works and the way the technology can support it. I'll give you a couple examples. The United States government mandated electronic health records about 10 to 15 years ago. And prior to the electronic health records, medical errors were the fifth leading cause of the United States of death in the United States. Pretty scary. 98,000 Americans were dying each year due to medical errors. The government said everybody must adopt electronic health records. And within a couple of months, every doctor's office and hospital picked some tech. Now, medical errors went from the fifth leading cause of death at 98,000 medical errors per year to the third leading cause of death at over 250,000 medical errors in the United States. So the tech brought changes in the workflow that caused medical errors to increase 250%. That's an additional 150,000 people that didn't need to die each year because of bad technology implemented. Another example is I just saw someone, it's a person that has an AI that will tell you how good you speak by measuring your pace of words per minute and, pauses that you take. And he just made a post, and what he missed was a speech coach tries to teach the speaker to move the audience. Can you get the person to change direction? Can you get the person to change their behavior, maybe eat healthy and exercise? Can you get the person to stop smoking? Can you get them to purchase something? And that's what needed to be measured. And that's what the technology do. So it wasn't counting the number of words the speaker was making per minute. It was using AI to determine what the sentiment in the audience is. Are people liking it? Are they emotional? Is it driving emotion? Is it driving an impact? But you measure the wrong things, you get the wrong results. And 70% of all architectures are disasters. 70% of technology projects don't work because there is a mismatch between what the organization needs versus the technology system they choose. And that's why organizations hire cloud architects. We are that executive. We are that point person between the business needs and the technology. So now that I've explained that to you, let's talk about what a cloud architect actually does in their job. The first thing the cloud architect needs to do if they want to be successful is works with the executive team to learn the goals and vision for the business. I start with the CEO or the CIO, and I want to know what that organization's measure of success and what their goals are. Where do they want that organization to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and 20 years from now? Because CEOs plan 20 years in advance. So I have to get the business goals, because if I design the wrong systems, it'll keep the business from getting to their goals. If I design the right systems, that business is going to be woefully successful. And that's my goal as an architect. So after I know the goals and vision for the business, I need to now learn how that business operates, which is really about the business architecture, as it's called. How is the product made? How does the supply chain work? How is the customer serviced? If it's a product that needs technical support, how does that occur? And we need to map out those business processes, because when we introduce new technology, the goal is to transform that business by making the business operate more efficiently with technology. And if we don't know where we're coming from, we can't build a plan to where we're going. So the next thing the cloud architect does is they work with the organization's key stakeholders to create a new business architecture. What would we like the new sales process to occur? For example, let's say I had an e-commerce client and they're trying to increase their revenue. And currently they have just a regular website. Could we create a recommendation engine that would see that Leo Paredes likes these 3 different things? He's got a buying pattern of these things, and use AI to make a recommendation to Leo, which would cause Leo to spend more time on the website and potentially purchase more. So we have to understand how the organization operates today so we can design the business processes to get that organization to where we want it to be in the future. So after we understand the vision and we work to re-architect the business processes, the next thing we need to do is evaluate the organization's technology. Does the technology they have right now get them to their goals? If so, we don't make any changes. So we need to evaluate all of their technology, their data, their voice, their video, their servers, their containers, their security, all of it. And we need to say, okay, this is what they have now. And then we need to look at their goals in the future. If the current technology they have gets them to the future, there's no need to do an architecture. If the current technology won't, and in most cases it won't, Then we need to work backwards from the organization's goals and business processes and select the appropriate technology. Now, it's not going to be whatever's the best technology. Some organizations are still going to be using mainframes, and their mainframe spending is going up, by the way. Some organizations will go to the private cloud like Nutanix or OpenStack. Most organizations will have what's called a hybrid multi-cloud. They'll have their data center in 2 or 3 clouds. That's 98% of organizations, which is another reason the stuff that's taught in the certification doesn't work in real world, because they recommend proprietary systems. In reality, we've got to use open standards that work with our multi-cloud environments, especially because 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. So after we've done that, the next thing we need to do when we understand the client's technology needs and figure out where we get there, we have to design an architecture. Well, architecture is not done by one person. Architecture takes a team. If you ask David Lithicum, who's a good friend of ours, and he teaches our AI architect program, and he was the chief cloud strategist at Deloitte, meaning the head cloud architect, he'll tell you that a cloud architecture takes a team of 12 to 50 people, 6 to 12 months minimum to design it. In my experience, I will tell you my average architecture takes about 9 months, and it takes a team of 30 or so people. So architecture is a team sport. So when we understand where we need to go, we are the architect have to build a team. We have to go to internal management and buy for resources and get the resources, because resources cost money. We have to build a business case showing the opportunity for the business to get these resources. We then need to build a team. If I'm leading a multi-cloud architecture, which is really what I do all the time, I will need network architects. I will need solutions architects, which are cloud providers, people. They're going to provide their guidance. I will need DevOps engineers. I will need data scientists. I will need AI architects, network architects, security architects, IAM architects, and some engineers, because the engineers are the tech people. Remember, we architects are executives, so we're focusing more on the business needs, marrying business needs to technology. We can't dive too deep on any technology. That's why we work with a team of specialists, both architects and experts. Then, once we've got the architecture, we've got to bring this architecture back to the client. We have to present this architecture to key stakeholders. We have to sell and negotiate with the stakeholders, because what I do for one division is going to negatively impact another one. So my architecture is going to be a decision of trade-offs. If I do this, what will it do to this? If I make this change, what will it do to that change? Just like a doctor or a lawyer, same job. Doctor gives a medication, and what side effects does that medication do? And which other medications does the doctor need to prescribe to mitigate the side effects of the other medication they prescribe? This is architecture. It's the same level of complexity and planning as medicine. So after we do that, and we get to key stakeholders, we then need to work with the organization to create a team to govern it and to govern the implementation. And that means we're going to work with the organization's executives, key stakeholders, build teams, create statements of work. And then we're done that. We sell the architecture to the client, and we go off to a new client. We don't touch the technology. We don't build. We don't code. We don't configure. This is the biggest reason people don't get hired as cloud architects. They learn to code. Architects don't code. They learn Terraform. Architects don't implement. They learn Linux. That's great, but architects don't touch Linux. They learn Python. Architects don't do this. They learn SysOps, which is maintenance. Architects do this. They learn troubleshooting. Architects don't troubleshoot. That's the technical support people. So now you know what an architect does. This is the reason certifications which teach you the name of an AWS service or Azure service or Google service and how to configure that service won't get anyone an architect job. Now, that does not mean we should throw away the certifications. We just need to understand, as architects, the certifications are completely irrelevant to what we actually do. Get a Google professional cloud architect or an Azure solutions architect expert or an AWS solutions architect professional. That will help you get an interview and build your brand, which is a win. And then get the right architect skills so you can get hired. And it doesn't matter your background or experience. You can always get hired. I don't care if you're Jennifer Emo, who was a mental health tech that we trained that got hired by JP Morgan Chase as a solution architect. Jermaine Hafton, who was selling landscaping gear, who got hired by SMHU as an enterprise architect. I don't care if you're Balwinder Kerr, who was a stay-at-home mom who just got hired as a solution architect at Microsoft. I don't care if you're Jordan Kitco, who was a college student hired by AWS. I don't care if you're Lenny Burnett, who was our video editor, who got hired by Citrix as a solution architect. I don't care if you're Delroy Batt, who was working on ambulances, who got hired by CDW. And I'll probably give you many more examples throughout this presentation. The point is any of you, all of you can become a cloud architect, provided you have the right skills. Now, you don't actually have to just believe me on what a cloud architect does. What happened is, there's been some silly job descriptions out there that are a comedy routine. I can tell you, me and my architect buddies, what we used to do is once every month or so, we used to get together and drink some Macallan 18 or Macallan 25 over Cisco WebEx. We would look at these cloud architect job descriptions and literally giggle. And we'd ask each other, you ever know any architects that do this? And they'd say, no. You ever know any architects that do this? And they'd say, no. Have you ever seen an architect do this? And they said, not a real one. So what ultimately happened is Gartner went out there and they started asking companies, what do you want in a cloud architect? What's your perfect definition of a cloud architect? So they asked the CIO, because the CIO is our boss. Do you know who the chief IT architect is in a company? It's the CIO. Their job is to make sure that the organization's technology works for the organization's business strategy. So you know who your boss is as an architect? It's the CIO. And whether you report directly to the CIO or the CIO has a VP that reports to them and you report to the VP or something like that, your boss is still the CIO. So this is a business job with some tech. I'd say 50 to 70% business and 30 to 50% tech based upon the company. So when Gartner, and this was published in CIO Magazine, my team can give you a link to the article so you can read it for yourselves. When Gartner said to CIOs, what do you want in a cloud architect? They said, we would like someone that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. Someone that can develop and coordinate a cloud architecture. That means design it and build the team. Someone that can develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process. That's that leading the team, building the team, establishing the governance team, that type of thing. And then they say, what else do you want your architects to do? Find talent with the necessary skills. Well, that's the reason I've interviewed thousands of people over the last 20 some years. Assess the organization's software, hardware, and services. That's like when I told you about we'd have to assess the organization's technology and see if it'll get into their future business goals. They talked about creating a cloud broker team, in quotes, that's the way they put it. And the cloud broker team is that architecture team that we're talking about, that I talked about, building the team of 15 to 50 people. They then talk about selecting cloud providers and fitting third-party services. Let's face it, you're going to be dealing with all the cloud providers, evaluating their strengths and weaknesses. You're not going to be using, for example, AWS WAF, in most cases, to secure your systems. You're going to be getting security appliances from a Palo Alto, a Fortinet, a Cisco, or a Checkpoint. Same thing is going to happen with so many other devices. It's not going to be like what's taught in the certification. So the next thing they want you to do is work with the security people to develop privacy, to manage privacy, develop incident response procedures, because again, this is a leadership job. Help manage budgets and estimate costs, which we definitely do. We're going to have to determine what we need, its cost, and build a business case around it, and then operate at scale. Note what you didn't hear. No Linux, no Python, no DevOps, no SysOps. And why do people not get hired? Because someone learns how to build everything and they've got great hands-on skills. And then we interview them for a job interview and we say, the organization's weighted average cost of capital is 6.279%. How would you weigh that information to determine whether to build a public cloud or a private cloud? Or we ask that organization to say the organization has 200,000 remote access employees. How will you design the remote access architecture for them? And they don't know. Or we ask someone, how do you design the demilitarized zone for a web application? And they know how to code it or configure it, but not design it. This is the reason that nobody hires construction workers to be an architect of a building. It's the same reason they don't take the airplane mechanics that know the airplanes better than the pilots and ask them to fly the plane. Engineering is a hands-on skill. Architecture is a planning skill. So that's the biggest reason. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if you've got 10 or 20 years experience. We had Harsha, who was a cloud engineer for a decade. We trained him and got him as a cloud architect job. I don't care if you're Pritipal, say John, who worked in development for 20 years. We retrained him and got him a cloud architect job. And I don't care if you're Arun, who was working at Home Depot, not in a tech department, who got his first cloud architect job at, TELUS, the Canadian phone company. It just doesn't matter. And I don't care if you're Richard Ferrara, he was working in the fraud department, not the tech department at MUFG Bank, who was hired after our training. And I don't care whether you're Jeffrey West, who was a geologist, who after our training got hired by Kalian. It doesn't matter. architecture is not engineering. If you have an engineering background, you will need to learn architecture. If you come from a nurse background, a doctor background, a teacher background, like Nicole Chow, who we retrained and got as a cloud architect job, it doesn't matter. All of you can be architects. You just need to get the right training. And now you know what we do. I'll talk about the skills soon. But I love architecture jobs, and I am beyond excited about architecture jobs. And I'll tell you why. This is probably the most exciting time for architects ever. It's probably the worst time for engineers ever. We used to have a very good engineering program, people getting hired left and right, but I stopped selling it because I'm worried about engineering careers. And I wanted to go all in architecture careers because they are the future. So why architecture careers? Well, there have been some really exciting changes recently in technology. Look, I've worked with AI for 20 years now, but the GPUs, the TPUs, the CPUs are the fully programmable ASICs, and ASICs are getting so powerful that organizations are able to do incredible things with generative AI. Networking has gotten so fast that we can host systems 1,000 miles away and get similar, almost the same, but not quite performance as we used to do in the data center. And that was what was the enabler of cloud computing, high-speed networking. First cloud I worked on was in 1993. It was the ISDN cloud. I worked on the frame relay cloud in 1996. In 1999 and 2000, I worked on the BGP cloud. In 2001, I worked on the VPLS cloud, and I've consulted to many of the world's largest providers on how to design their clouds. So all of this stuff, the capability is getting very good very quickly. Now, when we think about what AI can do and high-speed networking can do and collaboration technology can do, these technologies are huge to be able to drive business performance. In fact, I will tell you, AI and the appetite for AI, which is part of cloud architecture, is so big and so high, organizations are spending money like you can't even imagine. It honestly reminds me of when I got my first tech job and we were building out the internet, because I was one of the people that consulted the internet service providers on how to design their networks. And poof, everybody was getting hired every day. Organizations were investing a ton of money. We're in that phase. So that's why this is exciting. Now, all these technologies, all in the cloud for the most part, and whether it's Nutanix Cloud, OpenStack Cloud, AWS Cloud, Azure Cloud, Google Cloud, Dell Cloud, it doesn't matter, HP Cloud, they're all the same. And if you understand the network and the data center and the cloud, you know all of them, which is very different than getting a certification and learning the name of the service and how to configure it. I don't care if it's object storage on Nutanix. I don't care if it's object storage on OpenStack from IBM. I don't care if it's object storage on AWS. Of course, they named it S3 to sound cool, or Azure, it's object storage, which they wanted to sound cool from a marketing perspective and called it Blob, or Google's cloud storage. It's the same object storage. So if you understand that technology, you can work anywhere. Would you learn how to drive a Toyota Civic, or would you learn how to drive a car? So a good architect knows all clouds. But why is it so exciting? Well, organizations have spent a lot of money and gotten nothing for it. 70% of technology projects failed, and they failed because they were engineering driven. The techies got excited about a tech. They convinced the business to use it. It did nothing for the business, or worse, it did like what happened with US healthcare after they mandated electronic health records. Patient deaths went from 98,000 to 250,000 and went from the fifth leading cause of death to the third leading cause of death. That's a bad, disastrous architecture. So the architect is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and more important to make sure they design systems that maximize business performance. That's why it's such an exciting time, because organizations are spending a lot of money. Want to get even more exciting news? When it comes to cloud architecture, every new piece of technology creates new jobs for us. AI, okay, now we got to consult to all the businesses in the world and how they can adopt AI. Every new technology that comes out there creates a job for an architect. Now, the engineers, not so much. Here's why. Let's say I had a cloud engineer role, which is why we stopped selling our cloud engineering program. AI right now can write a Python script. In fact, if we need a Python script for automation, none of us code around here because we're all architects. We all go to AI, ChatGPT, or Claude 3.5, and we ask it to write a Python script. 30 seconds later, we've got one. And it even tells you what to edit. It's no big deal. You don't even need to know anything about programming. AI can write a Terraform script. Again, another cloud engineer thing. AI can write a Bash shell script for Linux. No big deal. AI can write a Windows PowerShell script for engineers. Good news. Architects don't do any of that. But you know what AI can't do? The architect's job. Why? Because we've got to meet with clients. We've got to meet with executives. We've got to entertain clients. We take our clients golfing. We deliver presentations. We've got to get the audience to want to purchase something or adopt something. We're presenting at conferences. Everything we do is person to person. So we cannot be replaced by AI. So AI creates more jobs for us and can't do our job. So this is incredibly exciting. So now I talked about the role. I talked about what cloud architects do. What are the skills you need to be a cloud architect? And it's not what most people think they are. These are business and technology skills. But we have to go back to what is an architect. An architect is a planning career. An engineer is a building career. You will not learn how to design systems by building them. In fact, you won't learn how technology works by building them, which is what you need. I know you don't believe me. You've been told to configure labs all day long. How many of you work on your PC every day? I'm assuming everyone, or your Mac. How many of you can tell me how your PC works? How many of you can tell me what the cores do in your CPU, what the level 1, level 2, and level 3 cache in the CPU actually does? How many of you can talk to me about the PCIe lanes that exist on your CPU and how that would pertain to how many GPUs you could put in that system without bottlenecking by the CPU and how that would impact your artificial intelligence and machine learning performance? How many of you know that NVMe bus where your drives would sit versus the SATA port, a SATA bus versus a SAS bus? How does that Ethernet port work? When you go to the internet, how does your PC get to the internet? What's the ARP process? What's the route lookup? How does that work? See, that's architecture. Now, you can work with your PC all day long, and I promise you, you'll learn how to use your PC, but you won't learn how to design it. That's the difference between an architect and an engineer. So you need to understand the technology and how the technology works and how the technology fits together, not how to build it. I have no problem with you building it. In fact, I have my students build all kinds of stuff. Instead of configuring an S3 bucket, which I still have my students do, I have my students design and build their own cloud. Because who knows more, the person that designed and built the cloud versus the person that clicked a few boxes in a management console. We're architects. We got to have good skills. We've got to have good knowledge. So let's go over the cloud architect skills. They are a combination of business skills and technology skills. Most of these skills, 50 to 75% of them, are business skills because most of what we do is business. 25 to 50% of these skills are technical skills. And why is there a little variation? Because every company is different. You go to Cisco, you go to IBM, you go to Microsoft, they drive transformation in their clients and they're concerned about improving their organization's business performance. Other organizations are more concerned about selling solutions, but some organizations really want to make their clients successful. And because the business skills are so important, I'm going to start with the business skills. The cloud architect is really not much different than a business architect. They are a strategy consultant. We go into organizations, we learn about their business, and we create a strategy, a blueprint, which is what an architecture is, on how to operate their business more efficiently in the future by leveraging technology, cloud, data center, AI, all of it. So given that the first thing that we need to do is learn the vision from the executives, and the main thing that we're actually doing is re-architecting their business, if you don't understand business, you will not be able to be a successful architect. Now, 70% of architectures fail. That's because some people snuck in not knowing architecture and they didn't know business. They didn't know business. So they didn't know business. Every architecture you design, it's going to be a coin flip. Will it work? Will it not work? And that's the reason. Getting the tech to work is nothing. So you need to know business, and that's why we spend a lot of time teaching business. Like our architecture program at this point is 800-900 hours. A lot of it's business, a lot of it's tech, it's all people need. It covers 100%, even the interview and the negotiation, but it takes that much knowledge. So that's why certification is just not going to provide it. The next thing you need to understand is CXO relevancy. which is what the C-suite cares about. You need to know how to communicate to the CEO versus the CIO versus the COO versus the CFO, and you need to be able to address their needs. For example, the CEO is concerned with revenue and strategy and net income. The chief financial officer is concerned with where that organization spends its money because they can spend it on one thing versus another. If you can't build a good business case and convince the CFO why your technology is a better investment than something else, there's no architecture. They say, thank you for coming in, go home and have a nice day. You can build a business case and close $1 billion architecture, and I've closed plenty of $1 billion architectures. You can name your own ticket. So the first skills are CXO relevancy, which is being able to relate to the C-suite, and the business knowledge to be able to make an impact in their business. The next set of skills are leadership skills. You'll be creating and building teams and leading teams of engineers, architects, what have you. So you're going to have good leadership skills. You will need to have great stakeholder management skills. And I'll answer all questions after we're done. So here's what I mean by stakeholder management skills. Most businesses that hire cloud architects have multiple divisions. Let's say we were to go consult to a company like GE in the heyday. They'd have an aerospace division, a train division, an airplane division, a medical division, an appliance division. And each one of those units are part of the same company. But each one of those business units has different needs. And your architecture may help one part of the business, but potentially harm another. So architecture is the process of evaluating trade-offs. What's the best choice I have given the constraints and the goals? That's why there's no best technology. That's why the second you see the person that says everything should go serverless, they can't be hired. They are a hammer in search of a nail. You are like a physician. You are building a plan for a business. You need to be a trusted advisor, and you cannot afford to be biased. So we talked about CXO relevancy, business acumen and leadership skills, and stakeholder management skills, and why. Next, sales skills. I got to tell you, if you design an architecture and you've got some pretty pictures, you got some PowerPoint slides, you got documents, RFP responses, and the client doesn't want to buy your solution, you've done nothing for them. It's like a doctor that can't convince their patients to take their medication. Doesn't matter how good the doctor is, if the patients won't take their medication, they're not going to get better. So you will need really strong sales skills. You'll be selling your architecture, selling internal stakeholders and why you need resources. You're going to be selling. So you need sales skills. Obviously, we teach these things. The next thing is communication skills. We are not engineers. Nobody hands us a piece of paper and says, build this. We have to go to the client. We have to learn their business needs. Remember, 70% of all architectures have been failures. So we're going to have to go to our client and be real soft and have a lot of finesse, learn about what they did, communicate with them in an emotionally intelligent, gentle manner because we need information. We can't make them feel bad. They already feel bad. They already made a mistake. We've got to get the business requirements. We've got to get the vision for the future. So there's why we need strong communication skills. In fact, I'm going to tell you that communication skills are the most important skill for the architect. And here's the reason why. If you don't get access to the right information, you can't create the architecture. So I can tell you, I used to practice internal medicine. If Alonzo came to my office, I'd ask him what brings him in today. I'd ask him what makes his symptoms better, what makes them worse, what he's tried. And I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and that's how I get to my diagnosis. My cat didn't feel good, so she went to the veterinarian. The veterinarian looked at the cat and then basically said, here's your diagnosis. My wife and I were not impressed with the veterinarian's diagnosis because we knew the veterinarian didn't have access to a lot of information. Communication is how a doctor makes the right diagnosis. Good communication skills is how architects get the right information. You don't get the right information, you put the wrong information in, you get a problem out. Garbage in, garbage out. So communication skills are the most critical skills for the cloud architect. Next are presentation skills. You know what you're going to do all the time as an architect? Give presentations. If you're scared, don't worry. You'll get so used to it, it'll be second nature. I was giving, 3-4 presentations a day. I'm an introvert. Yep, I'm an introvert. You'd never know it because you just get trained and it becomes second nature for you. So presentation skills. Want to know why most people don't get hired in their architect interviews? The last part of an architect interview is a presentation. They have to give a presentation to a panel and they learned engineering skills, which teaches them nothing on how to design, present, or sell. And now they got to go do that and they can't. So presentation skills. The next set of skills you will need are vendor management skills. There is never a situation, for the most part, or almost never, that you're just going to go say, AWS, I want all your stuff. Even if you've got an architecture on AWS, you will be dealing with database vendors because you're probably not going to use proprietary databases. You're going to be using security vendors because you're going to need real enterprise grade security stuff. You are going to be dealing with networking vendors. And in the real world, not where 98% of organizations are multi-cloud, you're going to need vendor management skills. So you're going to need to have them. Now, the last part of the skills you're going to need are negotiation skills. Let's face it, life is a series of negotiations. I have to negotiate with my wife to go to the restaurant I want versus the one she wants. And quite frankly, I probably need to learn how to negotiate better with my cat because I always do what my cat wants. But here's the thing. In this world, you need to know how to go negotiate. You're going to be negotiating with stakeholders. You're going to be negotiating business deals. You need to know these things. And quite frankly, it'll help you earn more money. I've had multiple students that negotiated an additional $40,000 plus raise on their initial offer, 20 to 40 or more, just by the negotiation skills we taught them, which happens to be, 10 to 20 times more than we even charge for our training. So we talked about the business skills. If you don't have these, you can be an engineer, but you can't be an architect. So that's one of the reasons we have to spend so much time taking engineers, who I love, who are the best techies of all of us, and retrain them to be an architect. It's the same reason it takes me the same amount of time to get a teacher and architect job that's never worked in tech. And it doesn't matter your education. Look, Daniel Bose, who came to us, loved this kid. I wish he was my own son. He was an immigrant from Togo. He was 20 years old when JP Morgan Chase hired him. He did not graduate high school. He didn't even have a GED. And I was begging him to go at least get a GED, but he still got hired because he had the right skills, the right attitude, energy, enthusiasm, and the right training. So let's talk about the tech skills. Remember, cloud architecture is not a hands-on position. You will not learn how to design by building. Still, building's fine, but it's somebody else's job. You will need to understand the technology, how the technology works, and how the technology is put together, meaning what pieces and parts and components do you need to design a solution that will improve your client's business performance. Now, in order to do this, you have to understand all of the organization's technology at some level. It's not going to be super deep like an engineer because you have to learn it all. And if you have to learn everything, you can't go too deep. That's why an Olympic gymnast does 7 hours a day of gymnastics. But for fitness, you might want to do more things because you need to be prepared for more things than just gymnastics. So you will need to understand how to design for the organization's systems. You will need to design for their performance needs, their availability needs, their security needs, and that means you need to know a lot of systems. So what skills do you need to understand? If you understand that cloud computing is nothing more than renting space in somebody else's network in a data center, and sadly, I've asked 1,000 AWS certified people what is cloud computing, and they still didn't know because it doesn't teach any components of what the technology is or how they work, only how to configure them, which won't teach you design anything. So you need network design skills. So you need to understand how to select the right kind of wide area technology, network technology. Do you use a private line? Do you use an IPsec VPN, a software-defined WAN, or a SASE WAN? You need to architect that, and you need to know, and the strengths and weaknesses approaches. You need to determine your IP address planning. Because if you design your IP address planning wrong, the architecture crashes. If you design it right, it can scale to millions of users. You need to understand how to design for the organization's routing, which means BGP and to some degree some interior gateway protocols. It's no big deal. We teach them. We're a whole bunch of network architects, and we've got a whole lot of CCIEs in this company. Me and Mark and others as well that get involved. So we'll make it easy for you. The next thing is you need to understand compute. So guess what? Good news. It's the same stuff in the data center, the virtual machines that VMware invented in 1999 that we use in the cloud. Granted, we always call it a virtual machine. Google calls it a compute engine instance. Azure calls it an Azure virtual machine. Oracle calls it just a virtual machine. AWS has to make up some silly name and call it Elastic Compute Cloud. It's the same virtual machine. So you need to know virtual machines. No one cloud, no them all. You need to understand containers and container orchestration, and also the other form of compute, which is a function as a service. And we can do that in a private cloud. It's something like an Azure function or a Lambda function. Still runs on a server. They just hide the server from you to make it easier. The next thing you need to understand is storage and storage area networks. And whether that be block storage, object storage, file storage, RAID, you need to be able to architect storage for performance. Storage on the cloud is relatively low performance compared to what we have in the data center. So you need to be able to prepare to work around that to give the clients the performance they need. You will need good security design skills. That means real security. That means knowledge of how you design an organization's demilitarized zones, where their public facing information is, how to help the organization create the right security policy, how to help the organization with privacy, how to help the organization with data loss prevention strategies, how to help that organization determine the right way to authenticate users, authorize users, which determining what they can do, and then keep track of what they've done. You'll have to deal with next generation firewalls, IDS, IPS. And of course, we teach it. It's no big deal for you to learn. You will also need to understand big data, because data is the new gold. You will need to understand how to design an organization's data needs, what kind of databases they should use, when to use relational databases versus NoSQL databases versus graph databases versus data warehouses. You will need to understand the mapping and reduction process, how you get information out of these disparate databases, normalize that data, have some data hygiene practices, and how you would create, say, a data lake or a machine learning or an AI solution out of it. Of course, we teach these things. You will need to understand how to design private clouds, hybrid clouds, multi-clouds, hybrid multi-clouds. And AI, you'll know it, but of course we teach them all. And that's why we spend, 700 and 900 hours in our training program instead of just trying to shove it into a 20-hour certification. It's just not enough. Now, certifications that we recommend. I'm going to make this very clear. Most certifications will teach you absolutely zero about architecture. They're all intro level and systems administration. Vendors teach certifications to create technicians that know how to build it. So don't get 50 certifications because they're all 50 level technician certifications. The architect is a planning role, not a building role. But I still want you to get 2 to 3. These are the certifications we recommend and why we recommend them. We either recommend the AWS Solutions Architect Professional or the Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Generally speaking, I don't recommend Google certifications. I love Google. It's a great product. I don't typically recommend Google certifications because the goal of the certification is to get an interview. And Google's market share is like 10%. So if you get an Azure or an AWS certification, about 30 to 40% of the employers are going to look at that as good bait. So you want to get the certification to get the interview. What we'll teach you is what's going to get you hired. So all that AWS or Azure certification is just bait. But good bait catches big fish. You get in there, you get an interview, and then if you know what you're doing, you'll get hired. The next certification we recommend and teach is TOGAF 10. TOGAF is an architecture framework that teaches, what do you do first, second, third, what kind of documents you should create, and it's widely respected in the industry. So we teach TOGAF 10. Now, if there's ever a certification that you're actually going to learn something from, it's actually the CISSP. The CISSP is a security architecture certification. I teach it to our clients. It's one of my favorite certifications because it discusses security in the context of business and architectural components. And I got to tell you, when my students have a CISSP, which is nothing for my students to pass, it's really simple when you've got good knowledge and your instructors know what they're doing. They get interview requests like crazy. For example, Q, I don't want to mention his full name. He recently graduated our program, and graduation for us is you're hired. Yes, graduation for us is you're hired, not some silly arbitrary time. Q decided he was going to get a job. He didn't want to listen to me and wait for a security architect job. He took a security admin job, and a week later, he finished the CISSP. And then he had 8 different interviews that he had out there that were prearranged as soon as he passed it. And then he used the skills we taught him, and his first tech job is a security architect job. So we teach and recommend the AWS Solutions Architect Expert or the Azure Solutions Architect Expert. We teach both AWS Solutions Architect Professional or Azure Solutions Architect Expert. We teach the TOGAF 10 and the CISSP. That's what we recommend. So let's talk about how we train cloud architects. Our training is going to be everything you need to build your cloud architect career. We do live training on Zoom 3 days per week. Why live training? Well, first, you can ask questions in live training, like I hope you do in a few minutes. I can have my students design architectures together. I can have those students present those architectures to stakeholders like they would in the real world. We can coach our students' presentation skills to live training. And we do live training 3 days per week. Now, we also have 1 to 2 days each week of office hours where you can come and speak to our instructors. And we do that to make sure if you've got a question, you can ask someone, because I want you all to be the best architects. Like I said, I've got graduates at every major institution you can think of. And this is one of the reasons why. Two of these three classes are related to technical architecture. One of these three classes is related to the business skills that you need. So we have to teach that. In addition to this, in between live class as well, there's all kinds of fun stuff. There is a tremendous amount of video content where you can watch videos. There is required reading. There are assignments, things related to presentations, things related to sales, things related to architectures. In any case, you will do some homework and you'll turn it in and you'll give it to our team and they will give you feedback. Because without feedback, you don't know if you're doing it right or wrong. You know, there's a saying, I come from martial arts. It was always my passion and my love before my last injury. Perfect practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent, which means if you do something wrong 100 times, you've patterned and taught yourself how to do it wrong for the next 100 times. If you do it right and you're taught and groomed on how to do it perfectly and you practice that, you become the best. That's why, for the most part, you're never going to see an Olympian that didn't have a coach. You're not going to see a CEO without a coach, and you're not going to find many people that earn more than $200,000 a year that didn't have someone coach them in to be great. And the average cloud architect pay is over $200,000 a year, and that's why we retrain people every day. We create the most elite architects you can possibly imagine. So we also will provide you training on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, how to interview, how to negotiate a higher salary, and building your brand is really important when you're new and you don't have a perfect resume. David Lithicum and I have a perfect resume. We can apply for any job and not get auto rejected. Most people will not have that. We got to teach you how to get the employers to come to you. I got a perfect strategy on that. I've got a branding and marketing expert on my team. Alonzo was in marketing for close to 30 years. He is our chief marketing officer, and he helps our students create the best brands. Alonzo's like a brother to me. I got to tell you, his branding is awesome. He's a great cloud architect too, but we have him doing this in addition to these things. So, you know, those are some of the things we do. We will also do hands-on work. We will have you do some labs on AWS. Look, it's not going to teach you anything on how to design, but if anybody ever asks you if you touched AWS, you want to be able to say yes. We will have you do labs on Azure, because if anybody ever asked you if you did, we want you to be able to say yes. And then we'll give you real labs. So you can do all these AWS Azure labs all day long and still not understand the cloud. We will have you create virtual machines in our data center the hard way, so you learn virtualization. We will have you create containers the hard way, so you learn containers and container orchestration. We will have you build firewalls and VPN concentrators, so you can learn how to deal with security. We will teach you how to build Active Directory structures, because that's going to be your identity and access management for basically every major enterprise in the world. And we will teach you, and you will build your own cloud. So why do we do these kinds of labs? Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. Here's what employers care about, not your experience. They care about your ability to do the job and do it well, which is your competency, your energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the work. Can they trust you? Are you willing to go above and beyond? And are you a good team player? So when I have my students basically build a cloud, how do they compare to the rest of the world? Who's more competent? A person that can do an S3 bucket or set it up versus someone who can build a cloud? I'm going to give you a hint. I taught a 6-year-old how to configure an S3 bucket in less than 5 minutes. Nobody's going to pay her $200,000 a year to do it. But the person that can design and build their cloud, yes, they will. Who's more willing and more energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate? Someone that clicked a few boxes on a management console, or someone who created and built their own cloud? Who's more willing to go above and beyond? That's why we have our students build cloud. And we do one last thing. We give every student a job title of associate cloud architect. And that way, when they are done our program, they have about 6 to 12 months of work experience with an architect title. And if people come to class and they do their work, they will come back to us and we will provide good references for our clients. So now you know what is a cloud architect. You know what a cloud architect does. You know the right cloud architect skills. And I can tell you right now, with our 50% off July 4th sale, Our tuition is less than 2 days pay for our average graduate. So I hope you take advantage of this. Join now and we make you the greatest architects out there. But I want to answer some questions. So ask me questions, because whether you train with us or you don't, I want you to leave here with good skills, good knowledge, and the ability to get any cloud architect job you desire. So bring in your questions. You can raise your hand and we can have a real conversation, which is my preference. You can put it in the chat box and we'll answer. It doesn't matter.
I think I see one question, Mike. I believe this is from
I can see a
Celicia.
couple so far.
Okay. I'll start with this one. What is the graduation and hire rate of this development program?
Anybody that doesn't quit will get hired. We are not a boot camp. I detest boot camp. You come take our training and you stay in our training until the day you are hired. So as long as you actually do the work, you should be hired. Now, I have had people that bought our course and never came to class or watched any of the videos or did any of the assignments. Those people do not get hired. But if you're willing to stay in the class and you're willing to do the work, we don't quit on you. We give everybody a year in the live classes, unlimited time in our on-demand content, unlimited time in our Slack community. And guess what? Every week when we teach our 3 classes, all those courses go into your portal. So even if after a year you didn't come to classes, you get to see every class we still teach. So you got all the time you need. And unless you quit on you, you will be successful. That's the key. If you don't quit on you, we won't quit on you. It's my mission to get everybody that wants a great cloud architect job, a great cloud architect job. And I have example after example. You know, I gave you many examples. Debbie Griffin got her first job at LeaseWeb, for example, as a cloud architect. Al Legister was selling consumer products at Kimberly-Clark. He left our organization as a senior solution architect over at Deloitte. You know, Wallace Agana was a sales rep before we got him hired as an enterprise architect at JP Morgan Chase. Pierre Dussault was a sailboat operator. Really liked this guy. He was really young, smart, motivated. He got hired at LeaseWeb as a solution architect when we were done. Vladimir was a 24-year-old college student hired by North Highland. Noah Parker was a social worker who was hired as a solution architect. I think it was from a head, but if I remember correctly. So the point is, anybody that should do the work should be there. So the next question that I saw in there, I saw it come in earlier, was a question, and it was related to college degrees.
Yes,
And
I
the
found.
question was, do you need a college degree? The answer is no. Most organizations don't care about college degrees anymore. They used to, but you know, a lot of what's being taught in school isn't necessarily effective at getting people very skilled to do work in today's world. Daniel Bosu didn't graduate high school, and he still got hired by JP Morgan Chase. Delroy Bat had an associate degree. So we've got lots of people hired. Which organizations don't care about degrees anymore? Google, Microsoft, IBM. So you start looking at the organization's best employers, they don't even care about technology anymore.
The next question is going to be from Bob.
About degrees anymore. Okay.
Bob Ross. Mike, you touched on a CCA a few sessions back. Could you please get your opinion on both the CCIE security and enterprise infrastructure certs, respectively, and how and if those would play into landing an architectural position?
So, Bob Brass, let's talk about the CCIE. The CCIE security, I totally would not recommend. I would skip that. I would get the CISSP because that's going to be how do you design for security across everybody, not just Cisco. Now, the CCIE Enterprise, I'm going to tell you right now, that is the greatest certification in the entire world. It will do things to your brand that are there. In fact, I almost took a director level position at Nutanix several years ago. And I can remember one of the executives interviewing me. They're like, Mike, you're a CCIE. Well, you have to know something for that certification. You must be good. It's unlike the rest of the certifications where you can just, get a practice test, pass the exam, and know nothing. So the CCIE is by far the best networking exam in the world. Now, Bob, is the juice worth the squeeze? That's the real question. So What if I gave you some real statistics, Bob? And I want to give you some statistics. I'm going to open up some tech jobs and their salary, and I'm going to show you why I, generally speaking, don't recommend the CCIE, but I'm going to tell you why it's the best thing in the world anyway. Let me open up some jobs and explain to you why I typically don't recommend the CCIE. Now, I'm also going to tell you, Bob, that when I was at Cisco as an executive architect, you know what my manager asked me to do? He asked me to remove the CCIE and the CISSP from my business cards. And I'll tell you why when he asked me. My manager said, Mike, I need you to get rid of the CCIE and the CISSP from your business cards. And I said, why? And my manager said, do you want to be taken seriously as an executive architect, or do you want the world to see you as a techie? So I want to make that clear to you. So the CCIE will build enormous technical competency. I also want to make it clear that the average salary of someone with strong business acumen skills is $558,000 a year. Your technical skills as an architect will get you to about 200. Your business skills will get you to 500, 800,000 or a million or more as a chief architect. So is it worth it? Probably not. Doing the CCIE will take you a minimum of a year, minimum, and cost you between $20,000 and $40,000. I did it. Mark on my team did it. I have a lot of respect. So here's a job that requires business acumen. It's a senior director at Palo Alto Networks. It pays about $540. This is an easy transition role from a cloud security architect job. No big deal. And, you know, that's keep that in the back of your mind. That's at Palo Alto. Now, let's look at a job that's a senior director at Cisco. And then I'll show you some architect jobs, but I want to show you the potential of where you're going. I think this is the Cisco one. It's hard to see on my screen. So now you can see the senior director at Cisco, again, 527 with a pay range of 471 to 689. That's the average salary that I'm talking about 550 with business acumen. Now, if we look at a principal architect at Microsoft, and I was a principal architect in less than 2 years. And if you've got good business acumen, good leadership skills, and good sales skills, you're not going to have a problem moving into these roles. So here's a principal architect job at Microsoft. It pays on average 379, but I'm going to move it to my field so I don't look at a third monitor over here and look like I'm not looking at you. So look at the pay range here. It's between 300 and 495. The people that have better business skills that can close more deals earn 495. The people, and they also relates to their interview skills. The people that are techies and don't get the business very well end up earning 300. So you've got about $200,000 you can play with there. The more greater your business skills, the more you will earn. Here's a principal architect at Google. Google pays the best. Truth be told, we got somebody very recently a $409,000 job at Google. But here's an example. The average architect, the principal architect, and I was one in the first 2 years of my career, at Google earns $508,000 a year. But look at that pay range, 394 to 677. So the people that earn more have better business acumen. So Bob, do you do the CCIE or do you invest your time in business acumen? I'll tell you, you'll get a much greater return on your investment time by studying business acumen. But I love the CCIE. I got to tell you, it was really fun. I got to get really geeky. And the CCI did open a tremendous amount of doors for me, and it will make you technically competent on the engineering side. You're still going to need to learn architecture. So I hope that makes sense.
Bob also has a follow-up question, and he is
Right.
asking your opinion regarding the CISSP and understanding that without the 5 years of experience, you have to put associate in front of that CISSP title.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Bob. If you called me Mike, Mike the architect, Mike the CEO, Mike the whatever, and you paid me the same thing and gave me the same level of respect, I just don't care. So I'm a hiring manager. I have 2 people, and I've hired lots of people, and I've interviewed thousands of technology professionals over the years. I've got person over here that passed one of the harder security certifications that's the most valued, but they don't have 5 years experience, but they passed the same test. Person 2 has 5 years experience and passed the same test. I think the person that passed the test with no experience is smarter than the other person that needed 5 years of experience to be able to pass the exam. I don't care if it says CISSP-associate. I care about your knowledge. I've interviewed people with 20 years experience that I look at their resume. I'm like, you should be interviewing me. And I ask them basic things, and I don't know how they ever had a job. And I've seen 14-year-olds that can hack into the most secure systems in the world. I hire the 14-year-old that's capable. So I don't care if it's a CISSP associate. I hire people because they're good. I don't know if Leo has any certifications or not, but I'll put Leo against anyone anywhere in the world, and Leo will come out on top. I know it in my heart, and I've seen it. So I hire for competency. So I don't care. I'm only using it as bait. I hope that makes sense, Bob.
Let's see. The next question is going to be from Pete Mack. How long does a promotion take for the Enterprise Architect Development Program?
So how long does the program take?
Yes.
The program takes until you're there. So what is that? It could be 6 months. It could be 8 months. It could be 12 months. And it really depends on who you are. I had a cloud engineer. His name was Harsha. I love this guy. This guy was so technical, but it took about 14 months to get him to think like an architect and speak like an architect before he got his architect job. I also had Richard Afukar that came to me when I first started the company. 3 weeks later, he was hired by AWS as a technical account manager, and Delroy Batt was hired in about a month. Joe Millen came to me, and he was a CCIE. And we spent about a month with him before he was hired as a senior solution architect at Amazon. So what I would say is it's typically about 6 to 12 months. In a greater or better economy, it's a shorter time because employers are less picky and they're faster on hiring. In a slower economic time, it could take a year. But here's the thing, it's based upon you. 70 to 80% of our people work full time. And for those people, I'd rather say, take 14 months, keep your job, keep your family intact. We don't quit on you until you quit on you. Other people, by comparison, take longer. I passed the CCIE within 6 months of the time I decided to start working in networking because I wanted to. Most people take 5 to 10 years. So I'd say 6 to 12 months is probably average, but if you've got more time, you'll typically get through it quicker. If you learn quicker, you'll typically get through it quicker. But all I care for you is that at the end of this training, that you've done the work and you have the skills and you can build a good career. And we don't quit on you. So that's the real secret, is if you do the work, you should be good. But I'd say 6 to 12 months is a pretty average response. Please feel free to ask your questions. We want to help. You want to come off mute? It doesn't matter. You don't need to be shy. As architects, we talk. Our whole job is talking. So here's good practice. Please feel free to get your questions answered.
We got another question, Mike, from Cantor. What cloud architect specialties do we teach in our programs?
So we teach cloud architects in our cloud architect program. Now, I will tell you, I've got a lot of my people getting cloud security architect positions after our program. I have some people getting cloud network architect positions, but I'm going to give you the secret, Kenner. The closer you are to the business, the more you earn, and the closer you are to technology, the less you will earn. So you want to focus on cloud networking, expect a $250,000 job long-term. You want to focus on generic cloud and digital transformation, expect a $6 or a $7 or an $800,000 job 10 years from now, assuming you focus on the business. Where do you want to be? Remember, the architect is a leader. They are a team sport. So I prefer my people to become regular cloud architects. I really do, because they're going to earn more. But I've got lots of people becoming cloud security architects because we go crazy on security. And I've got lots of people becoming cloud network architects because we've got a bunch of CCIEs on staff and we get deep, deep, deep into these things. So I think Peter Mack had a hand that was raised. Unless
Okay,
you raised your
yes.
hand.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a direct question.
Sure.
You mentioned like a network architect and some other career track. So more specifically, what is the track for this one we're onboarding for this, right? What is the track? Yeah.
What do you mean by track?
Okay. You mentioned like networking, for instance. Like me, I've been in IT for like a couple of years now, and I've worked in different space, right? And you mentioned like networking solution architect. So is this more focused on, say, let's say AWS solution architect or Azure solution architect, you know?
Oh,
What's,
okay.
yeah,
So what
what
we're
is,
teaching is much bigger than that. The solution architect is a more junior role. Look, I have lots of people getting solution architect jobs. I had John, who just got a solution architect job at Microsoft's offer yesterday. Chris was teaching him how to negotiate a bigger offer. I had Balwinder get hired as a solution architect. They call them cloud solutions architect over at Microsoft. I've had lots of people get hired by AWS as solution architects. So here's the difference. As a cloud architect, you know everybody's cloud and you can design something that matters for your clients. And 98% of clients are multi-cloud. As a solution architect, you can only work in one company. If you're an AWS solutions architect, you work only for AWS. If you're an Azure solutions architect, you design, present, and sell for the Azure. So all a solution architect is somebody who works for a vendor. The Cisco solution architect designs, presents, and sells Cisco solutions. NVIDIA solutions architect designs, presents, and sells. So we're teaching you the bigger things. So all of our students can easily get solution architect roles, but we're preparing you for bigger roles where you're an expert on digital transformation. Did that make sense?
yes, it does, it does. And just like I'll reiterate again, the last comment you said it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months, right?
I said 6 to 12 months on average.
Six, okay, 6 to 12. Okay, okay.
And
Yeah, thanks.
it just takes some time to learn how to give the right level presentation, to develop the executive presence. And it takes some time because we have to get pretty deep on some of these technologies. And let's face it, most people don't go very deep in networking and data centers, but we have to do that.
Okay. Thanks. I think I'll just post my other question and
You
hopefully there's
feel free to
like
ask it.
a I don't want to ask for the cost because I went to the portal and I saw some like
Yeah.
yeah. So
For that, you
I
can just click
yeah
on it. There's a 50% off coupon right now. So just
oh,
divide whatever it is in
okay.
half,
And
unless
at
it's
the
already on the website.
okay, and at the end, are you guys gonna help with like the what's the word, for lack of a better term, we like the connects to like get those employers, for instance. Do you
We're
have
going to,
like
yes,
yeah,
we're going to teach you how to get employers to come to you.
okay.
So Robert Welch, for example, was a student of mine. Robert Welch was a very interesting guy. He'd been in tech forever, but we had a lot of presentation things to work on, Robert. He's a really great guy. We became good friends. He listened to our promotion skills. You know, that's why I've got a marketing executive with 30 years experience teaching it. And he would make a post and he would get interview requests every single day. I had to remove Cloud Architect from my LinkedIn profile because I just couldn't get bombarded by recruiters trying to reach me. We will teach you how to build a great recruiter network so that people come to you. And that way, here's the thing. Let's pretend Alonzo is the hiring manager. If I get my first interview with Alonzo, who's the hiring manager, and he likes me, here's what he's going to tell me. Mike, now that we've spoken, I'm going to hire you. We got to get rid of some formalities. Mike, I need you to fill out an application. I'm like, okay. He's like, but don't worry, I'm going to hire you. So Alonzo is going to then call HR and say, I've got this cloud architect, this guy, Mike Gibbs. This guy comes from a lot of background. He's got a little business acumen. I need to pay him 1.6275% the average cloud architect pay. And we need to do this because of his business acumen. That's called the comp ratio. So Alonzo's going to come back to me, you know, a couple days later. He's going to give me an offer. I'm going to be happy with the offer. I know Alonzo, I'm not even going to try and negotiate it. Well, because he's going to give me something real because I impressed him. Then I'm going to accept the job offer. And truth be told, a year later, I'm going to get some silly auto rejection from HR that's going to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Gibbs. We've decided you don't meet our requirements, blah, 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 blah. And that'll be the auto rejection. But I've already been promoted and it doesn't matter. If you do it the right way, the way we teach you, you'll get an auto rejection letter after you've been promoted so many times. And it's the biggest joke when you get this, and you get this auto rejection letter and you show it to your manager, he laughs. He's like, well, that's because you used a recruiter. That's because I interviewed you. That's because I didn't go through those HR people that send me 1,000,001 jack of all trades that don't know anything about anything. That's why organizations use recruiters. You won't have a problem if you follow the instructions. Okay, so there's more questions. Let's go through them.
Okay, Mike, the next question is going to be from Debbie. She's wondering, is the program fast paced?
Well, Debbie, it's not slow paced, but it is self paced. And here's what I mean. Of all the content online, you have whatever amount of time you actually desire to get there. In class, it could be a little fast paced, and it's going to feel very fast paced when you're brand new. And as you know more, it's going to feel like it's slower for you, but you'll get through it. The key is we don't rush you. So, quite frankly, if it's a little harder for you, I'm not saying it would be, you might learn better than others, but let's say it is a little harder for you. What if it takes you 18 months to get through? Hypothetically speaking. Now, I can tell you from experience, if you want to practice internal medicine or practice law, it's going to cost you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 and 7 to 10 years of your life, and you'll likely earn less than a cloud architect. So the reality is, we will get you through, and it may take a little more time if it's new to you, and it may be very quick. You may just pick up on it very easily. I had a student, his name was Raymond. Raymond came to us and he was a perfume sales rep. Really nice guy. He took our course. He also took our interview training. I'd say he was with us for about 3.5 months. And while he was there, he got an offer. And he asked us about the offer, and Chris and I debated it with him. He said, a company's willing to pay me $70,000 right now to put me into an architect training program. And they guarantee that they'll hire me as an architect for about $130,000 to $150,000 when I'm done. Should I take your course right now and spend the next 6 to 9 months training with you, or should I get paid to train? And we're like, Raymond, go get paid to train. You could work with us and we'd happily do it, but we've given you enough that they want to pay you and bring you in as what's called an associate architect. An associate architect is a trainee. Most of our people get hired as real architects, not associate architects. An associate architect is an intern. It's a paid trainee. And if they graduate the associate architect program, they get hired as an architect. And if they don't, they get terminated. So he had this option. He did real well for himself. So there's that. But I'd say 6 to 12 months on average. I don't think it's unmanageable. Alonzo was actually our student before he got hired, and then I begged him to come back because, we're like brothers. Alonzo, how hard was it for you? You were a student.
It will challenge you. It provides everything that you need and nothing that you don't. So it gives you more of a refined understanding of what it takes to become a cloud architect. Now, when it comes to intensity, there is a lot to cover, no doubt about it. There is a certain amount of depth with a wide spread of acreage for you to conquer. But overall, it takes a certain person who wants to continue to learn, continue to grow, take that extra step, and continue to become not just a cloud architect, but a increasingly great architect who knows that it's not a destination, it's always going to be a journey. So we give you everything that you're looking for. We give you the resources, we give you a timeline, we give you a trajectory, but overall, it's all about who you are to add that determination, that discipline, and be able to take on all those concepts so that if someone is going to be able to ask you what it is, it's not enough to know what it is, what it does, when you would use it, but you are always able to understand its business value. And you're able to interpret this value to people regardless of their age groups. And that determines how well you are as an architect. So the next question, Mike, is going to be from Femi. If the training takes 6 months, how many days per week is it scheduled for, and how many hours per day, Mike? It's like a word problem.
So that's a great question. So here's the thing. And most people actually get hired before they finish all of our training program, but because we're so extensive. But we have live classes 3 days per week, and each class is 2 hours. As I mentioned, we have 1 to 2 office hour sessions each week where you can come in and ask questions of our instructors. And there is videos, there's required reading, there's architecture projects, there's hands-on things to do in between classes. So it's very self-paced. Look, I had students that had to go to India for 6 months at a time, and we welcomed them back. During COVID, I had a student that had to go to Ethiopia for 9 months. We didn't care when she came back 9 months later. We were thrilled to welcome her. We've had students that had to go back to Cameroon or Nigeria, or me, I got to go to Greece periodically. It just doesn't matter. We will give you the time that you need. But, I'd say it's up to you in terms of time. How many hours a day can you actually study and still learn? Some people can do it all day, every day. When I did my CCIE, I don't know how, but I was able to study upwards of, 12 to 16 hours a day and still remember it. At my age now, I can't study 16 hours a day and remember it. So it would take me twice as long. But as long as you get there, some of the fun is the journey, and the destination is part of your journey. Okay, we train you, we get you a great cloud architect job. You've got a great cloud architect job. Now you love it and you learn it and you get better and better. And the next thing you realize, you're a principal architect and you're getting better at digital transformation and driving business performance. And then you're a chief architect or a CIO, or you move into a director or senior director or VP of architecture. Any of these options are fine. So it's going to be a process, and we're going to learn every day. I'll tell you, when I learned my CCIE 25 years ago, I thought I knew something. Well, I'm sorry. When I did the CCNA, I thought I knew something. When I did the CCNP, which was one level up, I'm like, maybe this networking thing's bigger than I was done. When I finished my CCIE, I went, uh-oh, there's a whole lot for me to actually know. And then it took me 25 years to really learn networking. So it's a process. You're going to get better every day. And I think you'll love it. After having lots of jobs, I was a firefighter, paramedic. I practiced internal medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner. Before that, I was a nurse. Then I got to be a network engineer for 6 months, which was the hardest job of my life. And then I became an architect. And I can't believe people paid me to talk to people. People paid me to take clients to lunches, dinners, Super Bowl events. Not that I understood football, but we had the Super Box and you'd have to take them. Now, football, the non-American football, soccer, that one I get, but regular American football, I didn't get it, but you're still there. So a lot of his jobs is relationship development. So I got paid to meet interesting people and help solve problems, which is something I love to do.
Robert is asking, what certifications such as Azure, AWS, Microsoft do we earn in the development program, or do we pay for them on our own dollar?
Well, I can't certify you in Azure, and no one other than Microsoft Azure can in the entire world. No employer cares about a certificate that says you took this course and you got a certificate for finishing it. They care about, can you remember the materials and pass? So you will pay for your own certifications that you choose to take, and we will provide the training for the Azure Solutions Architect Expert, the AWS Solutions Architect Professional, TOGAF 10, and the CISSP, which are the biggest ones that are out there and the only ones, as far as I'm concerned, that matter.
Celicia, what will our job title be if it's not a solution architect role?
It could be a solution architect. It could be a cloud architect. They could call you a cloud consultant. They could call you a cloud strategist. So it really doesn't matter, but they're all architect positions. And as you move up the architecture ladder, they call you chief technology officer or chief information officer. It's still an architect job. So there's that.
Also, will the development program cover AWS and Azure in particular?
It will cover AWS. It will cover Azure. It will cover OpenStack, which is getting incredibly popular because organizations are building private clouds. It will cover Google at times. Occasionally, we will do architectures on Oracle. If you're going to be a cloud architect and you want to be employable, you have to realize that 98% of organizations are multi-cloud. So we will design on all clouds because that's going to be what's required to hire you. I can't hire someone that knows AWS but doesn't know cloud. I can hire someone that knows the underlying infrastructure, which is all the same on AWS versus Azure and Google. Remember, we don't code, we don't configure, we don't do DevOps, we don't touch the technology in our job. So if you understand what is a virtual machine and how the virtual machine operates and how many CPU cores you need and how much DRAM you need and what kind of backplane and networking performance you need, you can go design that on any cloud. We're not clicking boxes. We're not using the CLI. We're not coding. We're not configuring. It has nothing to do with what we do. So you'll be able to learn the cloud. And constantly, I make my students design it. For example, in an architecture project, I tell my students, design a system that's going to solve this problem. Pick any 2 clouds or 3 clouds that you want, because it doesn't matter. If you were to buy eggs, does it matter if you go to Aldi's, Publix, Walgreens, Walmart, if they sell eggs? A cloud is just somebody else's network in a data center that's got some virtualization software on it. It runs basically the same hardware that everybody else is buying. It's the same thing. So really doesn't matter. You'll be good on all clouds. But we focus on AWS and Azure. And the reason we give the primary background on that is because, AWS and Azure own like 60, 70% of the cloud computing market. So by focusing on those, but we still touch other ones as well.
Yeah. Where would you get your burger? Burger King, Whataburger, Wendy's, depends on how they dress it, but ultimately it provides the same goal.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, the next question is going to be from Pete. Are there going to be mock interviews and resumes with project basis? I like the business approach. And also, do I need a CISSP as part of the program to be successful?
So yes, we provide lots of training on the resume, and yes, we do mock interviews for people that choose to volunteer. Now, when we do them, we ask for volunteers, and there's plenty of people that want to turn off the camera and not participate. The people that are successful are the people that say, yes, I want to be there. And because they're doing the work, and we'll let you stay until you get hired. But you will come in, we would do practice interviews, you'll watch other interviews of other people. You'll learn how to compare yourself to others. And yes, I said learn how to compare yourself to others. In the yoga world, and I'm a yoga instructor, it's just because I love yoga so much. Don't compare yourself to others. And then Alonzo is the hiring manager, and he's got two people, and he needs to compare which one he's going to hire. So you need to learn how to compare yourself to others. And I'm going to tell you the secret of this. Every one of us has a unique strength. The key is knowing what you can do, what makes you so special. I like to call it your superpower that you can use to sell yourself to the hiring manager. For me, I showed him it was my ability to solve problems and my ability to get the correct information and my ability to communicate when I transitioned my first architect role. I wasn't going to go down the tech path. I was an internal medicine professional. So, got to keep that in the back of your mind.
Stephanie is asking, do I need prior coding experience for this program?
Coding has absolutely zero to do with anything we did. So, if I said to you, "Go oima o Mikey's, posi sasemara, tikamu gata than eferistimanis today." So I told you what my name was, and then my cat wasn't happy today. That is another language. That's the equivalent of coding. Cloud computing is somebody else's network in a data center. It's like a hotel where you rent a room versus building your own house. It is virtual machines, containers, container orchestration, storage area networks. There is no coding in architecture. There is no touching the technology on architecture. It's not part of anything we do. We need to design systems, and our systems are not code. Our systems may be routers, our systems may be switches. So, in case you just joined us, I'll read it again from CIO Magazine on what a cloud architect does. CIOs want someone to lead the cultural change for cloud adoption, develop and coordinate a cloud architecture, develop a cloud strategy, and coordinate the adoption process. Find talent with the necessary skills, assess application software and hardware, create and lead a cloud broker team, establish best practices for cloud across the company, select cloud providers and vet third-party services, oversee governance and mitigate risk, work with the security people to develop incident response procedures and manage privacy, manage budgets and estimate costs and operate at scale. We do not touch the technology. We ask the business about their business goals, their business vision. We examine their business processes. We evaluate their current data. We build a team of people to design their future architecture to get into their future business goals. We create statements of work. We respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. We give presentations. We write architecture documents, but we don't code. We don't configure. We don't run SQL queries. We don't like Linux scripts. We don't write Python scripts. That is somebody else's job. And the reason I keep emphasizing this is I've got people that know how to do all that stuff. And then you ask them an architecture question and they're not hireable. So knowing another language, like I just spoke to you in Greek, is the equivalent of knowing how to code. It has no relevancy for what we do as architects. Nice to say you know how to do it, and maybe in your spare time you want to write code, but you will not be allowed to touch your client's technology if you're working as a real architect.
I couldn't agree more, Mike. It's like when you're trying to solve the riddle of the code in Terraform or in Linux, and you're trying to get deep into that and try to find, maybe there's a space in there, maybe everything was inverted, whatever. The more you spend time on code is less time that you're spending understanding the client's business, understanding the personalities, understanding the leadership, how they interact with each other, what's important, and being able to prioritize their list of goals so that you can understand how to enhance the architecture. So just as much detail as put into coding and everything else, it needs to be it needs to be focused on the clients as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Celicia.
Now, if we have a developer and they have that experience, it's no big deal. We can retrain them. We've had lots of developers that we train to be architects. And life is cumulative, so any knowledge you know could be helpful somewhere along the line. A developer may know something about APIs and the way they're architected, but it's not going to teach them anything about architecture.
No. Celicia says, this is so informative, Mike. Thank you so much. This seems more like business infrastructure and consulting, which is amazing.
That's exactly what it is. We are strategy consultants. So I can remember my first big executive architect role. I remember I was in a consulting organization. And what happened is, if you deal the really high paying architect jobs exist in these companies' business solutions group. Cisco had a business solutions group. Microsoft has a business solution group. Like IBM has a business solution group. So companies will hire industry experts to design architecture specific for needs. If you would go to like the IBM business group or the Cisco business group or the Microsoft business group, their architects could be a CEO of a hospital or a CFO of a hospital if they're in the healthcare division. They might include a doctor or a nurse practitioner with technical capabilities. There are going to be some people that are involved in policy at the legal level, and all of them will understand how all of that stuff is impacted by technology. So yes, this is that. And part of any good architecture as a real architect is creating a business architecture. And, strategy consulting is business architecture. Alonzo's family's got a strategy consultant and she creates business architectures all the time. So yes, this is exactly a strategy consulting role. Other than here, our strategic things are we're designing the technology, but it's the people, it's the processes and the technology. We can't just throw tech at a business problem. We have to put it all together. Great assessments. And yes, it's an amazing job.
Femi, do we use query languages such as Custo queries for Azure and possibly PowerShell? Please explain on the use of query languages. Right. The question aims to understand if there are transferable skills from a previous field.
Okay, so Femi, I'm going to give you the secret to life. What you ate for dinner yesterday has no impact on the dinner you have today. If you used to smoke yesterday, you can choose not to smoke today. If you're like me and you were practicing internal medicine and you decided you wanted to be a network architect, 6 months later, you can be a network architect. The good news is you can do anything you want. Life is cumulative. And if you know a lot about databases, we may not do any database querying, but if you know how to scale a database forever, and you understand with a relational database, for example, you could partition the database to improve its scalability. You can vertically scale it by using a bigger CPU, more DRAM. You could reduce the read load with read replicas. You could reduce the read load with caching, for example. You can reduce the write load and smooth out the CPUs with queuing. That will be helpful because that goes into your architecture. But no query languages, no Linux scripting, no PowerShell scripting. We are not engineers. We are not hands-on. And here's the reason why. All of you tonight, if you can go out and look at the sky, I'm going to give you the example of our architecture versus engineering. Go look at the sky. I don't know if we're getting some of the hurricane effects here in Florida, but I love to look at the sky. I can see the stars, I can see the moon, I can see Venus, I can see the Big Dipper, I can see the Little Dipper. That is the big picture of the sky. Now, I also have a lot of telescopes, like telescopes. Now, if I take one of my telescopes and I zoom in and say 100x at the moon, I may see the craters on the moon, but you know what I won't see? The sky. As an architect, the second you dive deep and zoom in into anything, you lose focus of the business. So you need to main focus on the business. I'm a network architect by trade. It's my love of all the actually, I love all these architect roles, but I spent many years as a network architect. If I'm designing a cloud or an enterprise architecture, I can't do the network architecture. I still have to bring in somebody because the second I focus on the network, I can't see the business. I can't see the business processes. I can't see the overarching security architecture. I can't see the data architecture. I need to be at this pie in the sky trying to see everything, and I need people to support me. So don't worry about your background. Life is cumulative. I promise you, whatever you learned will help you somewhere along the line. If you've been in sales, it'll help you. If you've been a nurse, I promise you the therapeutic and empathetic communication you learned will help you. If you've been a teacher like Keith West or Nicole Chow, guess what? Lots of what we do as architects is communicate and teach things to others. It's going to help you. So I don't care where you're from. If you take the lessons of that, you will be successful in any career. So I would worry about less about that and worry about making sure you get the right training and that it's a career you want to do. So you have the passion, the energy, enthusiasm to put your effort in it, and then you'll be successful. Please feel free to ask more about that.
Okay, the next question is back to Cole. Is someone with the language, can someone with a language barrier choose this path of becoming a cloud architect?
Well, let's talk about the language barrier and what that actually means. So, Co, can you communicate? Can you come offline so we can see how you communicate?
Hi, Cole.
Hi, Co.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello?
can.
Yes, we can hear you, Co.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I have like an accent when I speak English because I'm from French country, and so I'm kind of worried about that because like more cell-related. So I'm kind confused. But currently, I'm working as network engineer, so I'm kind of confused. I would like to choose this path, but I'm kind skeptical about my language.
Mm.
That's why I asked this question.
Okay, that's why I asked you to come off mute. Everyone has an accent. And I've gotten plenty of people from Ghana, Cameroon, for example, hired in American companies. So there's a difference between bad grammar versus an accent.
Yep.
When I go to present in England, you know what? I got this weird American accent. When I go to present in Australia, I've got this weird American accent. I speak Greek at home. That's the language that my wife and I speak. If I tell my cat, let's go, she's going to look at me with four heads, but I say, hello, she knows to come to me because the cat speaks Greek. She's been taught more Greek than English. Your accent makes you who you are. Be proud of your accent. The fact that you speak more than one language opens up opportunity. If you speak French, you not only can speak in parts of Africa, you can speak all over parts of Europe. There are parts of Canada. So this is going to be better for you. Richard Lepasco was a student of mine who recently got hired, and French was his primary language. He was from Togo. But Wallace Agano, he had a very strong Cameroonian accent, no big deal. Alonzo, have we ever gotten anybody? Don't the majority of the people we get hired have an accent from somewhere? Because we all
Yeah,
people have an
I am.
accent.
I totally think so. So Cole, if I were to go to your country, I would stick out like a sore thumb the moment that I start communicating. But you seem to be able to articulate, you understand concepts, you understand how this could leverage a benefit for your career, your family. So being able to apply what you're learning here, and you learn you right off the rip, you know two languages. You know English and you know, I'm assuming French and possibly other languages. That is a benefit. And it actually, the thing that you feel is going to be a hindrance is a very valuable thing because you're going to be able to share architecture and concepts to businesses related to your ability to communicate on in French as well as in English. So this is a boon for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of the people, was it Jermaine? He always made me laugh. Jermaine came to us. Jermaine was Jamaican, really great guy. And he says, I'm from some island nobody has ever heard of in the Caribbean. And I'm like, yeah, which island? He says, Jamaica. I'm like, Jermaine, I got a house full of Bammy. I got a house full of saltfish and ackee. I got a house full of turmeric tea. people not only know where Jamaica is, but here's the key. Accent, not a big deal. Now, if you had bad grammar and you couldn't communicate effectively, that would be different. So this ain't not going to work. That's probably not going to be appropriate at the C-suite, but it's expected that lots of people have an accent. Look, there's about 7 billion people in the world right now. I want to make it very clear. 325 million people are in America. Of them, what are 30% of us immigrants anyway? So if you're going to hire the best and the brightest, that means you're going to have people from India. You're going to have people from Asia. You're going to have people from over Africa. There's 1.2 billion people in Africa. That's 4 times the size of America. You're going to have people from China. You'll have people from Australia. And that's what an innovative team looks like. Look at my team. Leo's over there in Sao Paulo. Eddie's over there in Bamenda, Cameroon. Tyrone is sitting there in Cape Town, South Africa. Chow is Vietnamese with an accent. Mark is from Croatia and Serbia. So in reality, that's it's not going to matter. And be proud of who you are. Be proud of your heritage. Makes you who you are.
Couldn't have said it better, Mike. Back to Celicia. Will we have to learn blockchain to become a cloud architect?
So you probably will not. Blockchain hasn't taken off anywhere close to what anybody else thought it would be. There will be some architectures where you may have to use blockchain, but you're going to bring in some blockchain engineers to help you with it. You can't know everything. So yes, there will be times, but you got to look at blockchain and why it's so goofy for cloud computing. The whole point of blockchain and why blockchain came about was people were upset that the banks had all the information on all the money on their ledgers. So they went to blockchain, which is a distributed ledger, meaning make the ledger all over the world on systems across the world. Now cloud computing has centralized everything. So in most cases, yes, the cloud providers try to have blockchain, but that's like Ripple, which is owned by the banks, compared to Bitcoin, which is worth more, 44 cents versus 60-some thousand dollars. So blockchain is not a big thing that we do, but there will be times and we'll have to bring in some blockchain experts.
Cantor's asking, which tools are we using to design the architectures?
So here's what architects use in their day jobs. They use Microsoft Word because we write a lot of documents, respond to a lot of RFIs, RPs, RFQs. We create a lot of PowerPoint presentations because we present everywhere. We will be creating Excel spreadsheets for bills of materials and to potentially run capacity planning calculations. And we will draw pictures. Now, it depends what level. At your entry level, you're going to be designing your pictures on Microsoft Visio, Draw.io, or Lucidchart, and our students do use that. When you get to a certain point in your career where you're bigger than that, you're going to draw something in PowerPoint, and a lot of architectures are drawn in PowerPoint. And what's going to happen is you're going to send those PowerPoint documents to the graphics team, and they're going to create these big and these beautiful documents. So if you go to the Microsoft webpage and you look through their solution architect and you see these beautiful pictures, that's the reality of what your architecture diagrams are going to look like. And you're never, as an architect, going to be good enough to draw them that pretty. So when you reach a level in your career, here's what you're going to do. You're going to basically make something. You're going to send it to the graphics team. They will use a program called Adobe InDesign, and they will take your little chicken scratch architectures and ugly looking things that you would do in a Draw.io, Lucidchart, or Visio, and they're going to turn it into something very beautiful. So in big architectures that are over, say, $50 and $100 million, you're going to have something beautiful from the graphics team. In little mini architectures, you may draw it in PowerPoint, you may draw it in Lucidchart or something like that, and our students work with all of them. But there aren't really big architecture tools because architecture is a consulting job. It's not like we're going to SSH into a system. It's not like we're going to use a PowerShell or command prompt. We're using office tools, office productivity tools. These are good questions.
Are there many women in computer or cloud architecture? Seems like it's a man's world. Will a woman who takes this course and graduates be able to have the same amount of money as my male counterparts?
A woman will be hired faster and most likely earn more. And here's the reason. Organizations are dying to improve Their metrics of the demographics of who they have. But you can only hire who's been trained. So, you know, when I became a nurse in my youth, it was all women in the nursing school. It was me and another guy. And there were 78 other women in the class. When I got hired as a nurse, I was the only guy in there. So, you know, that's what hired. Now, if you go to a medical school, 50% of the people in medical school are women and 50% are men. Actually, like 60% are women and 40% are men. So if you go look at the average doctor, it's men. If you go to a computer engineering course and you sit in the class, it's going to be 80 or 90% of the people in the class that are men and 10 to 20% of the people that are women. So who do you hire? You hire what's trained and what's available. So you will never have a hard time getting a job if you've got the right skills. Balwander was a stay-at-home mom before Microsoft hired her. And Microsoft, if you want to talk about a good employer, Microsoft is one of them. Debbie, you know, got hired as her first architect job in the UK at Credera. You know, she was our student and she did real well for herself. Gladys got hired, no problem, became a great architect. Sonali, oh, she had a beautiful job at DTCC as an architect. Jennifer Emo was a mental health tech. She got through, she was in our program, I think, for about 5 months, didn't even finish the program or have a chance before she got hired. So you'll have no problem getting hired as a woman, but understand the demographics, or because there's a lack of people that are actually there in schools. I wish we had more women on our team, but you know, I'd say that 10 to 15% of the people that we have as students are women. I'll also tell you our women do real well, but that's really the thing that you're fighting. And that's why it's hard for us to hire people, because we can't hire people without the skill. You know, these aren't learn on the job skills. You make a bad architecture, you destroy someone's business. So it's not that it's a man's job or a woman's job. None of that could be further from the truth. It's just that who chooses to go to which jobs. That's the secret. Who chooses to go to which level of education.
The final question at this time will be from Robert. Does any of this training include the Oracle Cloud architecture?
Every architecture in today's world is multi-cloud. There's nothing that looks like an AWS certification. I mean, it might be rare where a company got 1 million people certified and they didn't really understand what they were doing and they just followed, oh, let's do exactly what's in the certification. Microsoft recommends multi-cloud. Oracle recommends multi-cloud. Google recommends multi-cloud. OpenStack, Nutanix all recommend hybrid multi-cloud. So the only people out there that are saying they can do it themselves are AWS. And the reality is the customers aren't buying it. They know that a single cloud is a single point of failure. And that's why 98% of organizations do multi-cloud. So of course we will cover Oracle. We'll do some architectures on Oracle. Of course, we will cover some architectures on Google. Of course, you will learn OpenStack. Of course, most of it will be on AWS and Azure because that's the predominance of what's out there. But you will not be a real architect if you can't architect on everybody else's cloud. So I ask you this. Would you learn how to drive a Toyota Civic or a Honda Civic, or would you learn how to drive a car? Me personally, when I rent a car, I get these Hyundai cars. They tend to be really good. I could rent a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes. I drive a Mercedes because it sits better on my back. My wife has a Toyota. It's a better car than my Mercedes. I get in her car and I drive it. My back hurts in it, but the car is great and I know how to drive it. So you need to know the cloud, and we will make you an expert on the cloud. Any last questions for me?
Yes, we'd love to know. And you know what? Another thing, Mike, is that they also, even the cloud service providers, know the importance of multi-cloud. So you have a lot of them using outside adaptive services of themselves to help couple outside of their own cloud service provider environment. So understanding that any of these infrastructures, like Mike alluded to earlier, it's all the same stuff, you know, with a different name.
Yeah.
So if you all have any questions in the meantime, in between time, we want to reiterate that we have our 50% off 4th of July sale that's happening right now. So these are one of our larger discounts that we have throughout the year. It's not very often, although we may have incremental discounts. This is one of our largest ones that we only have 2, maybe 3 times a year. We encourage you all to take advantage of our discount, take advantage of our development programs, and we look forward to working with you. So if you all have any questions, we definitely have a little bit more time before we sign off for today. The team works very hard. Mike is always in the lab, knocking things out, really creating wonderful content for us, helping us to realize how to create this stuff so that you all can be very successful and get the things that you need to become great cloud architects. So this man works very hard, very, very hard. And I know it's been a long day for him, but we're still here to help you all get your questions answered and get an understanding of what it is that cloud architects do, how this development program reflects the competency and skills you need to be successful. And we're here for you.
Absolutely. Please feel free to ask a question. I have been in the lab. I've actually recorded about 99 new videos so far. I'm creating some additional content. We're constantly updating, changing, improving. We want to make it very good for our clients. Any last questions? If not, it is going to be time to find my wife and find my cat, Cindy, who's the most beautiful little girl you'd ever imagine. I adopted her from my wife. Never really was a cat person. The next thing I realized, now I'm a cat person. Okay, so if there's any more questions, ask them. Otherwise, I wish you all a good night. You know, whatever you do, if architecture is something you want to do, I encourage you to pursue it. It is the absolute best job in the entire world. I've had a few professional careers and nothing is better than architecture. We have a 50% off sale, which basically makes our training less than the cost of 2 days pay for our average graduate. So, you know, I would take advantage of it. And, you know, quite frankly, it's up to you. But if you want to become an architect, I recommend the career. It's terrific.
So Pete's
Are there any
asking,
questions?
we can break down the verbally break down the cost of the development programs. So when it comes to all the programs vary in price, but if you enroll into the actual program, you will get that immediate savings the moment that you click the enroll now button, and you'll be able to move on with your information from there. However, from a breakdown cost perspective, you also have an opportunity to make 3 different payment plans. Either you can pay it all up front with the 50% discount, use a 3 or 6 month payment plan utilizing that 50% off. Now that 50% off will be spread across all of those payments, be it 6 or 3. So I hope that's helpful for you, Pete.
Yeah. And, you know, if you can see it, I pulled up the website because I don't really get involved in pricing. 6 payments are $237.50 a month. 3 payments are $432 a month, or a single payment is $1249. And the average architect earns about $1,000 a day. So that's about 1.25 days for a pay for our tuition. So Coca asked, can you pay now and start later? Absolutely. You
Absolutely.
know, you're in the program until you're hired. So it really doesn't matter when you actually start. We typically say 12 months on the live, but it's really no big deal. If you want to start, when you start the live, just tell us. We're very flexible around here. We are obsessed with getting people hired. We don't really push things too hard on anything otherwise with regards to time. You can join now and finish anytime you want.
Yep. We've always had people who disappeared and came back with a wonderful newborn. They had to go back to their home countries to take care of family responsibilities. Let us know. If you need to pause, let us know. We're always going to welcome you back with open arms. We want you to get hired. And that's the difference between a boot camp and our development program. They want to get you certified. We want you to come out of this with an offer letter. So going to the bank, offer letter, or a certification to get a loan, home, or car, or otherwise. Our job is to get you that job.
And I think Peter is actually asking a question about the enterprise architect program versus the cloud architect program. So Peter, we've been talking
Hey,
about the
let
cloud
me come
architect.
in since I'm the numbers guy.
Okay.
All right. So, hey everybody, my name's Chris. I am Chief Operating Officer here at Go Cloud Careers. Oh, my camera's not on. Here I am. Hey, I'm in the dark because my motion sensor light went off. Okay, guess my motion sensor doesn't want to recognize me. All right, so breakdown of the cost. So Mike already showed the Cloud Architect Career Development Program pricing. So let's go over the Enterprise Architect pricing, and then just for fun, because in case anybody else has the question, I'll go over the Gen AI pricing. So for the with the current 50% off coupon code July 4th with the number 4TH. July, the number 4TH. You can enroll with a one-time payment in the Enterprise Architect program for $17.49.50. That's US currency. 3 monthly payments of $649.50 US, or 6 monthly payments of $349.50. So again, that's $1749.50 for the one-time payment, $649.50 a month for 3 months, or $349.50 a month for 6 months for the Enterprise Architect program. And you can use that same code that Leo has been sharing in the chat box on any of the programs that you find on our site. The Gen AI program, just to cover all of our bases here, with the July 4th coupon code will be $1374.50 for one-time payment, $499.50 for 3 monthly payments, or $274.50 for 6 monthly payments. Again, that's for the Gen AI program. If you click on that link that Leo shares, you'll have a menu bar at the top that says, and you'll see courses on there, and you can click that, and you can go all through all of our courses and have fun looking around at what's available. There's comparison charts on there. There's you can schedule a call. The one that we're talking about today, the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, Pete, is the $1249.50. That is the link. Yeah, it is hard to choose one. It is, and that's why we do these. That's why we do these.
So let me summarize the 3 different roles. So the enterprise architect is going to be more business and less tech. An enterprise architect could be the chief information officer. They sometimes go by chief architect. They're typically director or VP level in a company. So it's there. Now, how do we do the enterprise architect? I'm going to tell you, Peter, and others in case you're curious. Most enterprise architects don't know the tech very well. They just know the business. For us, if you're going to be a good architect, you need to know the business and the tech. So in our enterprise architect program, we provide the whole cloud architect program that we're talking about today, and extra training on business process optimization and leadership. So for us, look at it. So you can look at the enterprise architect as the top of all the architects, and top because they're more business and less tech. The cloud architect is going to be a more technically focused architect than the enterprise architect. So they're there. I will tell you the cloud architect role is going to be very easy to get hired in. The enterprise architect role is a great role, but it's going to be a little harder. So I have no problem if somebody starts in the enterprise architect program and they get the first job as a cloud architect or a solution architect, and then move into an enterprise architect role later. The enterprise architect training would still get somebody paid more as a cloud architect. And we've got lots of people enterprise architect jobs. Jermaine Houston, really fun guy from Jamaica, went from selling landscaping gear to enterprise architect. Wallace Agana, he was from Ghana, interestingly enough, just like his name. And he got his first job at JP Morgan Chase as an architect. So enterprise architect, the most business. Cloud architect focused on all the cloud and data center stuff. The AI architect is focused exclusively on designing AI systems. Which do I recommend? What most aligns with your heart and soul? What's going to make you the happiest? In my youth, I like to focus on the network. In my older age, like 30 something when I was there, I found more pleasure, more fun, and more opportunity in enterprise architecture, but it really doesn't matter. You'll be good in any of the case. So I hope I explained that. So any of them are good. So do you want to be at the business all the time? Think enterprise. You want to be at the business 60% of the time, 70% of the time? Think cloud architect. Do you want to be half business, half tech, and focus just on AI? That's the AI architect. They're all wonderful.
So I want to chime in here as well, because this is something that we deal with a lot when we're dealing with people that are new and transitioning into this field. And this is one of the benefits of us. We're very flexible people.
Yeah.
We're actual people. We're not some corporation out there that's selling you training and you're dealing with a sales associate and they don't have any say over anything or anything like that. So we understand, and we have policies and procedures in place for if someone enrolls in a particular program and then they decide that, I'm interested in this other program. If it's within a reasonable amount of time, we're flexible. You just reach out to us. We've got the mechanics for that within our program, and we're flexible with you. Also, if you choose that you want to be a cloud architect and then you want to learn also about AI or enterprise, but you still want the cloud architect aspect, we've got add-on opportunities for that as well. So we're very flexible with that, because we know that, especially with newer people, the more they get into it, the more exposed they get to things, they may realize they're interested in something else. And so we build those mechanisms into the system. So I wanted to share that for everyone. Which one pays the most money? We actually talked about this the other day in class, and I point blank told everybody, it's like, don't worry about it. They're all comparable. If you're just now getting into a role, if you're going the cloud architect route, you're going to be perfectly comparable to other opportunities. And don't get too bogged down about the feeling of missing out, or I'm gonna look back and wish I had done something differently. No, because if you take a cloud architect role and then 3 years from now you wish you would have gone Gen AI, guess what? Because you've been working as a cloud architect for 3 years, and if you learn a little bit about AI, boom, you're going to get that AI role that you desire now. So don't let that fear of missing out or jumping in the wrong ship scare you. Alonzo regularly shares with our class and with our students the pay ranges and everything, and we were showing it, and they were all within like 5 to 10% of each other, and it's all one half dozen or the other. If you're security, or if you're Gen AI, or if you're enterprise, enterprise is different, but that's because that's a level above. But whether it's security or cloud or Gen AI or network architect, they're all in the same realm. So also, Alonzo, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know you like to talk with people. You got a link that somebody might be able to use if they want to talk with you, or me, or Tyrone, or someone else from the team?
As a matter of fact, I do, Chris.
I thought you might.
I'll add an opportunity for you to set up or meet with me anytime you'd like, and set up an appointment. I'd be more than happy to speak with you. And I'll add it right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. And, we have to understand, we're not talking about basic careers here. We're talking about high-paying careers. For example, Leo's in Brazil. It cost about 700,000 real in Brazil to become a physician. And it doesn't pay anymore, or even as much as a cloud architect. So we're training you for the most elite careers that are out there with the highest pay. Because, and I think about it, Alonzo, you have an MBA. I know it cost you 150. I have an MBA. I don't even want to tell you what my education cost, because it was a lot more than that. Chris's was more than that. We've got 3 MBAs. We've got a person with a law degree. We've got 2 PhD business school professors. We've got a bunch of CCIEs teaching in this program. So our instructors are not, somebody that's never done it before. You like AI? Our AI is taught by David Lithicum. He worked at NASA because of his AI 30 years ago, and he's been doing AI ever since. So, our goal and mission is to change your life, and we're dead serious about providing the best we possibly can at the lowest cost we possibly can provide. And we pretty much offer these at our cost or pretty close to it because we love when people get hired. We really do.
All right. We got any last questions from anybody? I gotta keep Mike's cat and wife happy, so
Yeah, so there's something called Bonkers Perk Pops. They're like lollipops for cats. Mine's been following me around the house with them all day long.
Mike, I saw a picture, I saw a meme on social media the other day where it was a cat. You see the pictures of the crazy looking cats that look like Einstein, and
Mhm.
and it was a cat with two jars in front of him. One was a swear jar and it was completely empty. The other had a sign that says, I talk about my cat when nobody asks me about my cat jar. And it was overflowing. Debbie has her hand raised, so we'll go with
Hi, Debbie.
Debbie, and then we'll finish out the webinar. Hey, Debbie.
What platforms do you use? Do you use Blackboard, Articulate, or anything like that, or what type of?
We use a
Like learning
platform. We use a platform called Thinkific, training portal. With
What is
and
it called?
we do what?
It's called what?
It's Thinkific. It's a white label learning management system. So it's been a very long time since I've used Blackboard, so I'm not sure how comparable it is to Blackboard.
Yeah, no, we're
That's what I'm
dealing
using-
with high
that's what I'm
resolution
using now with my
videos.
course. The course I'm in now, I'm using Blackboard, and I'm using that's a learning platform, and it's called Articulate,
Yeah,
and
no,
it's
so
through
No,
you must have heard of Coursera. You can take a lot of courses through
yeah,
Coursera.
no, we're much more sophisticated than that. We do live classes on Zoom, so you get to
Yeah.
interact.
so
And we
Well,
use
yeah,
the
let's
learning
find one.
management.
Well, I interact too. Like we're on Zoom. It's Monday to Friday from 10 to 2, and we do presentations every Friday. And we also have a Trello board. And we have a Scrum Master and a Scrub Scribe, and we do presentation. We just did a presentation today.
Yeah, so we're different because all of that is geared towards engineering-minded training. We keep it simpler. We use a learning management platform called Thinkific for our for our on-demand training content. And then we use Slack for our communication and our community engagement. And we use Zoom for our meetings and for our class instruction. All of our recordings are placed within our learning management platform. All of our documentation is available through the learning management platform. We keep it very, very simple. And that's because
And
we focus more on the individual and the engagement, actual engagement with individuals. And the less technology that we have between us, the better the results based off of our experience.
And that's why we use Slack for messaging, because it's typically what's used in the corporate environment.
But I don't know what Slack is. I never heard tell of it. I've never used it.
It's what you would use if you worked at a company when they would message you. So we use the real tools that people use in the real world. It's like a Discord, but for corporations and business.
Yep.
We use Discord with ours. It's called Discord, and it's like
Yep.
we have different teams, so we communicate.
We're familiar with
Yeah,
it. Discord is usually
it's
video games.
functionality wise, it's comparable to
Similar.
Discord. It's
Yeah.
it's
It's very similar.
corporate-y version of Discord.
Okay.
Yes.
Businessy version.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Right.
Femi, you asked for the strictly technical. There is no such thing as a strictly technical architect. if you only know tech, you won't be employable. So I don't want to recommend a strictly technical program for an architect because you won't be successful. The most technical architect that would be the cloud architect. And it's a great job. But if you only focus on tech and companies hire architects to improve their business, you won't be able to help them because you won't understand their business. It's kind of like a doctor that only knew medications but didn't know how to diagnose. It just won't get you to your goals. For the strictly technical, I recommend engineering. And Peter?
Yes, thanks. I was gonna ask from the cloud architect standpoint, where you mentioned it's kind of like 70% business, then 30%. Let's say, given an instance for, or should I ask, would you guys provide like training into like microservice architecture? Say, for instance, like Kubernetes, Terraform, you have to design those type of endpoints and APIs. Yeah, something like that. I'm just trying. Yeah.
So let's be clear. You will never use Terraform as an architect in your entire life. That is a DevOps engineer's job or a cloud engineer's.
Kubernetes. Yeah.
What you really need to understand is when would you use a microservices versus a monolithic?
Great.
Where is microservices best? Sure, we'll teach you containers and container orchestration, but there's a reason Amazon left their microservices architecture and went to a monolith because it saved them 90% on Amazon Prime. We have people out there pushing microservices, and microservices is great if you're Google and you've got thousands of developers and you're going to be reusing your services across applications. If that's not your client and their architecture, you're going to hurt them by going to microservices. So you're not going to be doing API design. You're not an application architect. You're a cloud architect. Your choice is to determine what is the right technology for that organization's business needs in a pure, unbiased method, the same way a doctor would choose the right medication for their patient without being saying biased or paid by a drug company. Here, prescribe only Pfizer drugs. You need to be trusted. So yes, we will teach some Kubernetes. Yes, we will teach containerization, but we'll teach you, more importantly, when you should use microservices that your application architects will design, not you, versus when an organization should use a monolith. And you'll be the gateway to those specialty architects that are going to do it.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Because how I see it, I look at the job market because I've been laid off like a couple of months now, and I see the trends, and I'm just thinking like, from the market perspective, whereby you have a job that is put out there, and most of the jobs will mention this Kubernetes, Docker, EKS,
Not if you actually
when you say look at the job market, do you mean job description?
Job description.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm your HR guy. I used to be that guy that would write those. And I talk to those people every day. Job descriptions are the most worthless piece of words ever put together on the face of this planet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they are not, they do not convey what is actually needed for the role. And there's many reasons for that. The primary reason is because whoever's writing them doesn't actually care about what's being written. And most likely it's a combination of 3 or 4 people that have written the job description. HR, who doesn't actually know what the job is. The hiring manager, who doesn't have time to write the job description. So they go and find other job descriptions and add their stuff to it without removing what is not necessary. So you get these Frankensteins. I've seen a job description that asks for Kubernetes experience longer than Kubernetes has been in existence.
Yeah. Like some of these jobs will make you, like, let's take for Indeed, for instance, they would ask you to take you through a questionnaire. They'll ask you, do you have a Kubernetes? And then you say no. And when you try to click submit, and then it kicks you out, you can apply for that.
That's why we teach our students.
Don't use any systems. Don't use systems. I'll let Mike talk to this.
So here's what happens as a hiring manager. We get a cut and paste job description from HR. HR sends me 100 people that have all these things on their resume. and can't do any of it. So then I go call a tech recruiter, and then I say, please find me something that knows something. And then I hand the the recruiter the garbage HR description, and he or she says to me, Mike, what do you really want? And I say, I need somebody smart, I need somebody fungible, and I need somebody that knows business presentation skills. And they're there. So there's a really good video on our YouTube channel. I interviewed the CEO of an IT recruiting firm, a national recruiting firm, and she talked about why job descriptions are effectively meaningless. So if you work at AWS, Azure, Cisco, Google, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase, if you touch the technology, you'll be escorted out of the building by security. You will not be allowed to. So there are places that hire engineers and give them architect titles. For example, many years ago, I was hired by a South African company that was a global multinational. And when they hired me on the first day, I went in and they hired me as a network architect. And they said, Mike, I want you to configure stuff. And I said, wait, you hired me as an architect. And they said, well, we didn't want an architect. We wanted an engineer, but we couldn't pay an engineer this much. So we gave you an architect title. And I said, it was nice to meet you. Walked out the door, went to Comcast and took a principal architect job. You will not be allowed to touch the technology if you have a real architect job.
And
That's
thanks.
the big problem.
the
People go
system,
learn
this-
on something and then they go to the manager and the manager asks them, explain the weighted average cost of capital and what it means to me. Architect my demilitarized zone. How do I deal with my remote access? How do I create a 5 nines available system? And the person doesn't know. That's what doesn't get them hired. So I'm trying to help you out. You can be great, but you will not be touching any of that in the role.
Okay. So let me just ask one last question, and I'm done. I'm gonna just take a swipe and look. And I'm trying to. So like after the program, right? You mentioned like principal architect. That's like kind of like a higher level, kind of like senior.
It's a more business oriented role a couple of years down the road.
Okay. So what would be how do I enter the market? Say I'm done with this program, I'm so successful. So it's gonna be looking at a cloud architect role directly, or principal?
It could be one of the following. So you take our program.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the cloud architect program, you're most likely going to get hired as either a cloud architect or a solutions architect, because that's what we're training you for. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had plenty of people that took our cloud architect program and got a director promotion or a manager promotion, but because there's so much leadership in the architecture world, but you will get a cloud architect or a solutions architect job. If you took our enterprise architect training, you would either get an enterprise architect, cloud architect, or a solution architect job. If you took our AI architect training, you would be prepared for an AI architect job. If you took our cloud security architect training, you'd be prepared for a cloud security architect job. So whatever you train in is going to be the role that you're going to get.
Okay, thanks.
But you will be hired while you're in the program, not while you're done the program. We don't have a boot camp. We don't say you're gone after 32 weeks or 16 weeks. We don't care about you while you're forgetting what you learned. You're going to stay in the program and you're going to get hired in the program. And that's why graduation is a job.
Sure, thanks. That answers my question. Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure if Debbie's hand is still up from earlier or if she had another question.
No, I have another question.
Okay.
There's a thing that I always seen. It's in California, and there's a lot of jobs. It's called cloud beds. Did you ever hear of it? It's called cloud beds. It's
No.
in California. Do you have to be a
There's lots
cloud
of jobs
architect to apply
in cloud
for cloud beds?
If you want to be it depends on what jobs they even have. I've never heard of them. You know, the vast majority of architects are going to work at a big company like a Cisco or an IBM or an AWS, Azure, or Google. They're going to work at a global consulting firm like Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, or they're going to work for a global enterprise like a JP Morgan Chase or a Barclays Bank. Everybody hires a cloud architect, but I would be looking for the Microsofts and the IBMs of the world and those kinds of places, because they have the budget to pay you anything. And they also will pay for MBAs if you choose to get them. They'll pay for executive communication training, that sort of thing.
Are you saying cloud beds, like the bed that I sleep in beds?
No, it's an organization. It's really big in California.
No, like, but I'm saying, is it BEDS cloud beds?
Yes, I think that's
Oh, that's the
yes.
hotel software
yeah,
company.
I was gonna say I'm familiar with it from my hotel background. Is it the hotel property management system?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's called Cloud Beds. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar with their organization, but my assumption is that their platform is entirely cloud-based, whereas most and my understanding is that they probably deal with independent hotel operators as opposed to franchises like Hilton and Marriott.
Yeah.
And sorry, I worked in hospitality for 12 years previously, so that's why I'm familiar with it. But so without knowing too many details about their job
I can provide a
openings,
context.
yeah.
Yeah, Debbie, this is not going to be a lot of jobs. Cloudbed's total revenue last year was $50 million. If you compare that to, say, one of the cloud providers' revenue that was $80 to $100 billion, think about the difference. So 50 million multiply times 20 to get to a billion, and then multiply that by 80. So you're dealing with about 1,600 times the jobs at a Microsoft than you would find at a cloud beds. Yes, they do have them. Yes, there are jobs, but your big players are going to be Deloitte, which will have 30,000 cloud architects, or Amazon that'll have 30,000 of them. So there's not even going to be 30,000 people at a cloud bed. There's not even going to be 10,000 people at a company that's doing $50 million in revenue. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's what we're preparing you for. We're preparing you for the big leagues, not the other little things that are out there. They're great. You can work them. You can work for a small company, but who really needs somebody to design $1 billion architecture for them? Not a company that does 50 million in revenue, a company that does 80 billion or 100 billion in revenue. And that's where we work. And that's why they can afford to pay us a lot.
It's not often I get a hotel
But
question.
there's jobs for us everywhere. And that's the great news. Everybody needs us. And yes, that kind of software is definitely cloud hosted. So it's been an honor to meet you all tonight. I love meeting new people. I hope you learn what is an architect. So whether you train with us, and I hope you do, or you train someone else, will be a lot cheaper, but no matter what you do, at least you know what we're doing and what we do and how we do it. So you don't go learn the skills for someone else's job and then go on an architect interview and we say, come back when you have more experience, which means, sorry, you didn't have the skills. So wonderful to meet you. I hope to see many of you in class. For those of you that did sign up, because I saw a lot of emails come in, but I didn't read them, please read the Welcome to Go Cloud Careers email. I want to know that you're successful. And that email has very important information about how to attend classes and how to be successful. So for those of you who signed up, I can't wait to meet you in class because I teach a lot of these classes. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, I was muted. Bye, everybody.